Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the partial government shutdown is 11 days old. We'll have the latest developments from Washington. Also tonight, a bill in the U.S. Senate is threatening a San Diego school serving homeless students. And the clock is ticking for a nature center in the South Bay. Folks there need funding, and they need it fast.
I'm Peggy Pico. Also joining us, former CIA agent Valerie Plame shares some secrets in her new spy thriller, Blowback. Then, who's raised the most money and how it's being spent in our latest Follow the Money report of San Diego's top mayoral candidates.
San Diego Symphony has a new home tonight, but they didn't have to move a single thing to settle in. We'll explain. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. A day of phone calls, meetings, and some proposals, but still no end to the partial government shutdown, now 11 days old. President Obama worked the phones, holding conference calls with governors, business leaders, telling them he's willing to negotiate on the economy, but not under threat of a fiscal crisis. He also called House Speaker John Boehner, and a spokesman for House Republicans say they agreed to keep talking. White House Democrats called for action.
To recognize how much damage that they're doing every day. The government continues to be shut down. So we need to shut down the shutdown. We need to pass a long-term debt ceiling relief bill and get government working for the taxpayers of this country once again.
There are proposals from House and Senate Republicans to reopen the government and raise the debt limit. They also include deficit savings, changes to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and an easing of spending cuts or sequestration. The shutdown has forced the cancellation of this weekend's centennial celebration in San Diego at the Cabrillo National Monument. It was supposed to include a gala at the Lighthouse tomorrow night. That celebration has been postponed until March. Of course, we will continue to follow developments in the shutdown this weekend on our website, kpbs.org. The future of San Diego's only public school for homeless children may be in jeopardy of closing. The Monarch School downtown serves about 300 kids through a special federal exemption, but a Senate education bill would eliminate that and force Monarch to close its doors. The school's only other options become private and lose half of its funding, or open its doors to the public. A move school officials say would be intimidating to students.
They feel more comfortable talking about what they're going through and sharing and asking for help or support, or telling us that they didn't have breakfast or a shower that morning, and being able to do a load of laundry or go into the boutique to get a pair of shoes. And that makes them better prepared to learn.
Monarch is one of 3 schools in the country affected by the bill. California senators say they'll work to keep Monarch open as a homeless-only school. Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill protecting domestic violence victims from discrimination at work. Employers are required to come up with measures to protect workers from their abuser or stalker. San Diego teacher Carrie Charlesworth was fired from a school in El Cajon after her abusive ex-husband came to the school. She told her story on Evening Edition last month, saying the new law would make work environments safer.
So hopefully this will open communication between employer and employees so that people who are experiencing domestic violence in their house will be able to come forth to their employer, which makes the environment much safer.
The law goes into effect on January 1st. The governor vetoed a bill to ban future sales of most semi-automatic rifles with attachable magazines. It was part of a package of bills responding to those mass shootings around the country we've heard about. Brown says the bill is too far-reaching, but he did pass other bills banning kits to create high-capacity magazines and creating restrictions on the mentally ill possessing firearms. A new report shows more than 16,000 county homes are at high risk of wildfire damage. We're talking about homes in Julian, Ramona, and Alpine. They had the highest number of homes on the list, followed by Escondido and Jamul. The report by CoreLogic says the homes aren't necessarily in fire-prone areas, but are within reach of wind-blown embers. The estimated total property value of those homes is $2.5 billion. Less than 6 weeks away from the special election for San Diego Mayor, Peggy Pico is looking at how the candidates have raised money in tonight's Follow the Money report.
And the race for cash in the San Diego's mayor's race is at full throttle with just 5 weeks to go in the election. Investigative reporter Joe Girardi with KPBS media partner iNewsSource joins us with the latest on tracking mayoral race money. Joe, welcome back.
Thanks.
So, Joe, what had to be filed yesterday, an important day, and why was this filing date or deadline, I should call it, so important?
Sure. It was the first major pre-election campaign finance filing deadline of the mayor's race. Up until now, we've had a partial view of how much campaigns and other political committees active in the race have been raising. They've had to report within 24 hours any contributions from individuals who have given at least $1,000.
Break down for us how much money has been raised so far overall.
Okay. Well, as of yesterday, we found out that the major candidates and the committees supporting them have raised nearly $2.5 million in the 6 weeks that we've been.
It seems like a short amount of time to raise that much money. So how much has each candidate, if you could separate that out for us, how much have they raised?
Sure. The candidate who's raised the most, if you add his supporting committees in, is David Alvarez. He and the independent political committee supporting him have raised over $1 million. In second place is former state assemblyman Nathan Fletcher. His campaign, plus an independent committee supporting him, have raised nearly $800,000. In third place is Councilman Kevin Faulkner. His campaign and an independent committee that backs him have raised over $600,000. And then way in the back, you have former city attorney Mike Aguirre. He announced early on that he would not accept any contributions over $250, but he maybe shouldn't have even bothered to make that announcement since he raised just a little over $3,000, and almost half of that was his own money.
His money on his own.
Yeah.
Over $1 million for Alvarez in such a short amount of time. How did he raise this money so quickly?
That's a great question, and it gets to a very important distinction. Technically, David Alvarez's campaign did not raise the majority of that money. His campaign only raised about $140,000 on its own. Instead, the vast majority of that $1 million was raised by independent political committees, in particular one committee sponsored by the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council. They raised almost $900,000.
Of that $1 million.
Yes.
They were big. Tell us how many people are contributing to these campaigns.
Sure. Now, we don't have a perfect idea because campaigns are not required to list any donor who gives less than $100. But we still think that that probably counts over 95% of the money. So in terms of the candidate with the most individual donors, that's Kevin Faulkner. He has almost 1,100 individual donors that we counted. Nathan Fletcher is a little below, a little over 1,000 donors. And then way behind them is Councilman David Alvarez. He had 281 individuals, and Mike Aguirre had 17.
17. Okay. How much of this money in these campaigns have already been spent, and what are they being spent on?
Sure. Well, the biggest spender so far is Working Families for a Better San Diego. They are the Labor Council's political committee. They're supporting David Alvarez. They spent about $400,000. A lot of that is coming in the form of TV advertisements. They're buying a lot of TV airtime to air advertisements in support of David Alvarez. They've also spent a good amount of money on polling.
All righty. Well, investigative reporter Joe Girardi with KPBS Media iNewsSource, thank you very much for this. And there's a whole lot more on our website, kpbs.org.
Thanks so much.
The four leading mayoral candidates will be at KPBS Monday for a debate moderated by Peggy and Virginia Cha from our media partner 10 News. You'll hear from Mike Aguirre, David Alvarez, Kevin Faulkner, and Nathan Fletcher about their vision for the city and their plans to make San Diego better. That debate airs from 5 until 6 Monday night. Or, as the sailors used to say, here there be dragons. 7 baby sea dragons, to be exact, just hatched at Birch Aquarium in La Jolla. These weedy sea dragons are relatives of the seahorse found in the wild off Australia. A nature center in the South Bay has been teaching folks about local wildlife for almost 3 decades, but the nonprofit Living Coast Discovery Center in Chula Vista is facing closure unless they raise enough money by the end of the month to stay open.
So we're all about bringing people closer to local wildlife, getting them up close to see those animals that live right here in our own backyard.
When we first visited the Living Coast Discovery Center about a year ago, we saw black jellyfish that were showing up along the San Diego coastline. They've now been replaced by moon jellies, which look more like white parachutes floating in the water. San Diego is home to a large number of indigenous animals and birds, and this is where you'll find them. Such as the small but vicious western screech owl, this is one-eyed Jack, and baby leopard sharks, often seen in La Jolla. But all this could disappear if the nonprofit runs out of money this month. So it's sending out an SOS to save our sea life and keep the doors open. Sherry Langston manages the facility and says they've raised more than $50,000 but need $200,000 to hold them over for another year until grant money comes through.
Most of our funding comes from grants where we apply for education program specifically to go out into the community and talk to kids as well as have children come here and teach them through day camps. About
75,000 people a year visit the Living Coast Discovery Center, now in its 26th year. If it doesn't raise the needed funds by October 28th, they'll be forced to close and find new homes for hundreds of animals. It was formerly known as the Chula Vista Nature Center, but transitioned into a nonprofit to remain open in 2009. Today, the State Coastal Commission gave Mitt Romney the okay to tear down his oceanfront home in La Jolla and build a much bigger one. The current house is 3,100 square feet. The former presidential candidate plans to build a mansion nearly 4 times the size, about 11,000 square feet, to accommodate an underground garage. A former neighbor tried to stop the project, claiming the Romneys were interfering with beach access, but the commissioners disagreed. It's been 5 years since Lehman Brothers collapsed, triggering a global financial crisis and shattering confidence worldwide. Since then, a new attitude has emerged when it comes to personal finances. Warren Levinson of the Associated Press tells us frugality is king.
It's ceramic, but I've got to let things go to pay bills and get us a new life that we can afford.
The trinkets are a reminder of Madeline Bosco's more carefree past. She and her husband have already sold their stocks, refinanced their home, and plan to sell more of their goods to pay off their debts.
I have to say it's probably 2009 that it hit us. And that's when it was a big wake-up call that, hey, things aren't easy anymore.
Everything changed for the Boscos and millions of others after the Great Recession. 5 years since the collapse of Lehman Brothers, families remain hunkered down, too spooked and too distrustful to take chances again with their money.
And it's almost annoying and heartbreaking when you think you've paid all those years to get your loan rate down, and maybe you have another, 10, 15 to go, and you're back where you started in '93.
An AP analysis of the 10 biggest economies found people have pulled hundreds of billions of dollars out of stocks, instead pouring money into savings. In Tokyo, Sahoko Tanabe saw her portfolio nearly evaporate during the crisis. This time, she is trusting no one but herself.
I used to invest as I was told by stockbrokers. As a result of that, I suffered a huge loss. There was nothing good out of it. In the end, Lehman was the fatal blow. I feel for sure that the current situation is better, so I decided to study so as not to make the same mistake.
But the worldwide pullback, while good for the individual, could actually harm the global economy.
They put off making a fix to their car, buying a new appliance.
Around the globe, the Great Recession has forced a great reset when it comes to personal finances. The need for financial safety and security has not been seen since World War II. Warren Levinson, Associated Press.
Coming up on the KPBS Roundtable, we follow the money pouring into the San Diego mayor's race. The convention center expansion plan takes another step forward. And people say they don't like dense development? Well, a new breed of architects is out to change your mind. I'm Allison St. John. That's all coming up on the KPBS Roundtable.
A former CIA agent whose cover was blown by the Bush administration talks with Peggy Pico tonight about her new book.
Household name back in 2003 when her career as an undercover CIA agent abruptly ended after a member of the Bush administration exposed her cover. Now, Plame is the author of a new spy thriller, Blowback, that also reveals what it's like to be a woman in the CIA. Valerie Plame, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, remind us, back then, Vice President Chief of Staff Scooter Libby was convicted of leaking your name to the press. Briefly remind us of what led up to that.
My husband, Ambassador Joe Wilson, wrote an op-ed piece in the New York Times, July 2003, in which he stated his opinion that he felt that the Bush administration had manipulated and twisted the intelligence to get the American support for the war in Iraq, and the Bush administration was not very happy with that criticism.
So do you think it was retaliation then?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about your book. Your memoir, Fair Game, was a New York Times bestseller, and now you've co-written this spy novel, Blowback, as the first in a series of thrillers, I understand.
Hopefully a long series.
Yes, okay. Why the move to fiction?
Well, I wrote the memoir, Fair Game, which was, in a sense, a catharsis for me. It's trying to make sense of what my husband and I went through, because we went through quite a bit. There was a lot of political heat on that. And my publisher, David Rosenthal, came to me with this idea, and I'd only written intel reports prior to anything else. Well, okay, I'll give it a try. And I really wanted to show a strong female protagonist in the CIA world, because to my mind, in popular culture, what's out there is not really accurate or realistic.
And you've said that before. You've said that this, and it's pretty evident in your book. How would you like your book to change that perception?
Well, so that the female character, Vanessa Pearson, is not just a paper doll. She is flawed, she is ambitious, but I paid really close attention to getting the tradecraft right, how people really communicate with each other clandestinely, how you move in and out of countries and so forth, because a lot of the time I'm sort of rolling my eyes when you see it, how it appears either in a movie or in TV or in books. And the other thing, I wanted to build it around something I care about deeply and what I worked on in the CIA. The plot revolves around a secret Iranian nuclear facility. And this is something that's in the headlines right now, of course.
And clearly it was familiar back in when you left the CIA. Aside from sharing your initials, what does the heroine, Vanessa Pearson, of your book share with you? Are you sort of you revealing a little bit?
Well, she's way better at languages, foreign languages than I am, and smarter and certainly younger. But what I brought to it was those interactions that you have with your colleagues in the CIA. There's romance in it. All the locations in the book are places I've either worked or played or traveled, and they go all over. And I think that is part of the appeal of the whole genre in spy thrillers. People want to be taken to someplace exotic.
And these are based on some trips you've been on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Realistically. Your book also reveals sort of the loneliness of being a CIA agent. How do covert CIA operatives cope with this sort of not being able to talk about their job?
Well, it starts with who they recruit into that job in the first place. They're looking for certain character traits, really mentally strong people who have the ability to be able to move in that environment. It does get lonely, but the job is, I love my career and I miss doing it. So despite all the low points, the ability to work on some of the issues that I did, nuclear proliferation, made up for it.
What do you miss? Is that one thing you miss? What else do you miss about being in the CIA?
I miss the government paying me to live and work overseas.
There you go.
But to be able to serve your country and work on these issues, if none of this had happened, I thought that if I was lucky, I would retire as a senior intelligence officer working on proliferation issues, but that didn't happen. So my husband and I took our children. We moved a few years ago to New Mexico and busy rebuilding our personal lives and professional lives.
And sort of sharing your past. All right. Former CIA operative and author Valerie Plame, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, an interview with Malala Yousafzai of Pakistan, the 16-year-old shot by the Taliban on her way to school. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
Autumn or fall marks a lot of firsts for the San Diego Symphony. In November, they'll tour overseas for the first time ever, and they'll also make their debut at Carnegie Hall. KPBS Culture reporter Angela Carone takes a closer look at the future of the 102-year-old San Diego Symphony.
There's an old joke about performing at New York City's storied Carnegie Hall. Since I'm terrible at telling jokes, let's have the Muppets tell it.
Hey, do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall?
Practice, man. Practice. The old ones are the best ones.
From what I saw at a recent rehearsal, the musicians in the San Diego Symphony have taken that old quip to heart. I asked violinist Kate Hatmaker what she's been up to.
A lot of practice as well. It'd be good to be in some good shape for this.
She and her fellow musicians are preparing for Carnegie Hall. Music director and conductor Yaya Ling is leading rehearsal. He's spent the last 10 years building this orchestra, having hired just over half of its 80-some musicians.
Because for us to play in Carnegie Hall, it's like everybody wants to go to Carnegie Hall, you know, and I conducted several times in Carnegie Hall, not with my own orchestra.
The symphony is renting the hall for their performance, which will feature acclaimed pianist Lung Lung. Almost immediately after, the applause still ringing in their ears, the orchestra will get on a plane and head to China for a 3-city tour. Ward Gill is the symphony's CEO. He says they've been waiting for this moment.
What we're seeing now is coming to that point of really showing the world that this orchestra has come of age.
Coming of age has its growing pains. The symphony closed its doors at least 3 times over its history and filed for bankruptcy in the mid-90s. Stability came in the form of a $120 million gift from Joan and Irwin Jacobs in 2002. Half the money is a bequest to be given after the Jacobs pass away. The rest was distributed over the last 10 years, mostly into an endowment. The symphony collects interest from that endowment, which adds up to 10% of the organization's annual budget. Again, CEO Ward Gill.
It really provides, if you will, the stability of a core orchestra at a very strong level, but you have to have other people involved to make it greater.
Part of that means attracting and affording quality musicians. The base salary for a San Diego Symphony musician is $64,000. A musician at the top 5 orchestras could easily make double that.
Obviously, we would like to be closer to the top 5 orchestras, but we are still able to get the great musicians from the great schools, Juilliard, Curtis, Eastman.
The upcoming trips to New York and China are meant to showcase that talent to the larger world. The combined cost of the trips totaled just over $2 million. But even if those trips put the symphony on a different playing field, they face the same challenges as all U.S. orchestras: a tough economy, audiences who have thousands of entertainment options to choose from, on everything from the internet to their mobile phones. A recent study by the National Endowment for the Arts shows a dip in attendance for live events like theater and music. The symphony is trying to combat this. They just renovated their downtown building, now called the Jacobs Music Center. The actual performance space will remain Copley Symphony Hall.
We've brought in 4 state-of-the-art bars, so as people want to come and have a drink or a cocktail, some light food.
It will take more than a cocktail to grow younger audiences. Orchestras around the country are offering ticket deals and getting creative with their programming. Here in San Diego, for example, Dave Mustaine of Megadeth and Metallica fame will perform with the symphony in April. But right now, the goal is to be ready for Carnegie Hall. Jeremy Kurtz Harris is the principal bassist in the orchestra. I asked him if he was nervous.
Yeah, of course of course there's a little nervousness. That's what what happens with any big challenge like this. I think if we weren't nervous, there might be something wrong.
The San Diego Symphony takes the stage at Carnegie Hall on October 29th. Angela Carone, KPBS News.
Cool nights, but warmer days ahead. Cloudy along the coast tomorrow, starting to clear up on Sunday. Temperatures in the upper 60s to low 70s there, low to mid 70s for the inland valleys with a mix of sun and clouds. Sunny in the mountains with temperatures in the 60s, upper 80s for the desert. Plenty of sunshine over the next few days. Let's recap some of our top stories. Day 11 of the partial government shutdown had President Obama working the phones. He had conference calls with governors, business leaders, saying he will negotiate with Republicans, but not under threat of a fiscal crisis. He also talked with House Speaker John Boehner. And while the standoff continues, some national parks are about to reopen. Arizona and New York will foot the bill to reopen the Grand Canyon and the Statue of Liberty. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app, all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. Good night.